Ever felt like your garden doesn't look right? Maybe it's those towering plants blocking the view, or maybe those colors just clash. Stick around to see if you're making these 5 common landscape mistakes and learn how to fix them. My name's Zach, and welcome to Garden Theory. Here we talk about all things landscape and landscape design. We help homeowners to create beautiful landscapes with easy to apply principles. Today we're going to be diving into 5 common mistakes that beginners make in landscape design and how you can avoid them. So, our first mistake that we're going to be covering is people ignore scale and proportion when they're designing their landscapes. When we're planting plants, especially shrubs and trees, we always want to pay attention to the tag and plant it at its recommended spacing and know how big these plants are going to get. Too often do people plant shrubs and trees too close together, and as they mature, they clash into one another, creating problem areas where disease can be transferred. Unnecessary pruning is necessary to maintain a shape. This is one of the first mistakes that people make in the design phase. And the easy solution for this is to just plant them at their proper spacing. Yes, if you want to make a hedge, then plant them tighter. But that's a very common mistake that I see. Please comment down if this is something that you struggle with, planting things too close together. And if you do, feel free to plant your trowel on that subscribe button so you can be notified of future videos. Our second mistake is overcrowding. This is going to be a common problem when you first start a new site. People want things that look full right away. So what ends up happening is people overcrowd their shrubs. They plant them shoulder to shoulder in a row, and this just isn't viable. You're going to end up removing over half of those later on just so that the others can breathe. It's a very unsustainable practice and wasteful of the shrubs and plant materials that you're using. Now, some people will say if it's green, then it looks good. But here on Garden Theory, I want to push back against that idea. Just because something is green doesn't mean that it's good. We want to make sure that we're creating healthy and sustainable landscapes that can look good not just for 1 year after opening your landscape, but for 20 years. We want to make sure that we're creating a space that can be used for many years to come. Our third mistake is soil preparation. In most counties, you can get a soil test for free, and that's something I highly recommend that you do at the start of your landscape, and something to do yearly to check on your soil levels. Doing a soil test can help you get information that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Things such as what fertilizers your plants may need and your soil condition, your pH levels, all those things that you can't get unless you do a soils test of some kind. Now, some plants are more or less sensitive to soil issues, but however, for some plants such as hydrangeas and azaleas, the pH of your soil could be the difference between how happy the plant is and what color of flowers you're getting. So it's something that you need to keep an eye on, especially if you want something in particular to work well in those types of soils. However, in general, if you have poor soils on your site, it always helps to add organic matter. Typically, when you're planting, whether a tree or a shrub, I typically recommend that you use as much as the native soil material as you can. Otherwise, the soils can create essentially either a bathtub where the water is getting pulled into it and can't get out due to the difference of soil, or it's the opposite, water can't get into it. And it's really interesting how soils work. One little tidbit I'll throw in on this part, you'll see people put gravel or rocks at the bottoms of containers thinking that it'll help your water drain faster, but in fact, it actually does the opposite of what you would think. It actually holds the water up higher, creating more saturation in your root zone area instead of letting the water drain out. So it's something really interesting. If you ever want to learn more about soil science, there's a lot of really cool YouTube videos that you can look up where people will do tests with the soil in a thin glass container, and you'll see how the water moves between the different soil levels. So it's pretty fascinating and can be a little counterintuitive of what you might think. And our fourth mistake is choosing only seasonal plants. What I mean by this is that you're only picking plants that look good for one season. You're not picking plants that look good in all seasons of the year, and that includes winter. One way that we can find a solution for this is to have a high variety of plants in your landscape design. The higher variety of plants that you have, the more longer your bloom period is, as well as the wider variety of insect and bird species that you can assist with a wider palette of plants at your disposal. Now, there's a fine line of busy and messy and a wide variety of plants. And that's something you may have to figure out through trial and error because we don't want to make our landscapes look messy or busy and unkept. We're creating a ecosystem, but you can create beautiful color palettes with a larger variety of flowers, as well as a wider variety of textures and blooms and scents. So overall, I am a big supporter of a large variety versus a smaller variety of plants. And if you want more plant selection tips and advice, feel free to subscribe and like this video, as well as watch other videos. I have a full playlist of landscape design videos that I've done on this channel that will be linked at the end of this clip. So if you'd like to learn more about landscape design, feel free to hop over to that playlist and watch those videos. And our final mistake that we're going to cover today, the lack of planning for future growth. And what I mean by this is understanding how your microclimates will change as your plants mature, especially if you are planting a lot of trees on your site that may create a more shady microclimate as they mature. And a way that we can plan for those is to give those areas the space that they need at the beginning. And one way that we do this is by incorporating our trees into landscape beds instead of placing them in the middle of a lawn, for an example. So you'll see many times people will put tree rings around trees, and depending on the size of the tree, I'm mainly referring to larger specimens such as oaks, maples, sycamores, even pine and spruce trees of those varieties. When you plant those, you need to expect those to get larger. So something you'll see as those trees mature, if they're in a lawn, for an example, that lawn's going to die back as the trees mature just because there's not enough sunlight. And so one thing that I recommend is that you incorporate your trees in your landscape beds, but you have those landscape beds go to the edge of that expected drip line of that tree. Now that could mean, that your landscape bed is 30 feet away from the base of that tree. So that gives you room to put in different shrubs or seasonal flowers in those spaces. And as those trees mature, you can put more heavy shade perennials and plants like that. But having that space already prepared for that microclimate is a way that you can kind of stay ahead of it. And that way you're not playing catch up as your tree matures over the years. If you've made it to this point, thank you for watching the full video. Our next video is going to be about plant selection and what are the best plants for a low maintenance landscape for your yard. So please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on that video. And again, please feel free to watch this playlist. I'll have it linked at the end of this clip. And thank you so much for watching Garden Theory. And please leave a comment down below any questions or concerns that you have, and I'll go over them in a future Q&A episode. So thank you for watching.